Hello, everybody. So today we're going to be going over our assignments from January 4th or 5th. So log into Google Classroom and you'll see the warm-up question. So the question is, who were the captains of industry, the guys that ran the big businesses we talked about, and what were their industries? So where can you find this answer if you don't know it already? Well, if you remember before break, we had our big business quiz, but we also had a study guide that went along with it. It's going to be under week 15. So you can click that, view material. So, and right under here, reasons for the rise and prosperity of big business. Number 2 says captains of industry. So we have John D. Rockefeller in the oil company, Andrew Carnegie with steel, Cornelius Vanderbilt, shipping and railroads, and Henry Ford in the automobile. There is also another one. I don't know if he's pictured here, but we also talked about J.P. Morgan and banking. Now that we have our answer, we can go in and fill it out. Make sure you hit submit. Make sure it gets turned in so it can get graded. Then we're going to go over the guided reading. And I will read it to you. As you can see. Okay, so the impact of the progressive movement on the nation, day 1. So today we're going to start talking about sort of the reaction to all of this industrialization. What happens to the people that aren't these captains of industry, that don't have a ton of money? How are the workers being treated? How is the modern person, the average person, living and navigating this new industrialized society? So, with the rise of big business and industrialization came new problems for the nation and calls for reform. This period in American history, known as the Progressive Movement, marked a shift from an agricultural society to an urban society. With this shift came new concerns about the negative effects of industrialization, the rise of organized labor, workplace reforms, women's rights, and the temperance movement. This era was known as the Progressive Era, where people fought for better lives for working people. Now take a moment to think. All of this rapid industrialization, these new jobs that had never existed before, they're now what everybody has. Everybody's working in a factory, but they hadn't before. Think about the problems that could come along with having these new jobs. Are there going to be rules for them? What's going on with them? So, the negative effects of industrialization. So the country is growing, more people, more industry, new inventions, growing cities, and people's lives are not getting very much better. So if we're suddenly making all of these things and all of this money is starting to come into America and the economy is getting stimulated, why aren't people having better lives? Wouldn't you think if they can now have electricity in their house, things are going to get better? As industries grew, so did their need for workers. As a result, thousands of American citizens and immigrants rushed to the new industrial cities in search of new jobs and a chance for a better life. With so many people looking for work, factory owners could hire workers who were willing to put in long hours for very low wages. Wages were so low that it became impossible for a worker to support his family. In order to pay the rent and put food on the table, many parents were forced to send their children to work, which is called child labor, instead of school. Children as young as 8 worked 6 days a week, 8 to 12 hours a day for less than $1 a day. They worked in factories, mills, coal mines, picked fruit, shined shoes, and sold newspapers. So, how does this work out? So, think of it like in a classroom. So, if I was only going to give 5 A's in the class, and I looked at y'all and said, you guys have to work the hardest if you want to pass the class. Only the 5 hardest working are going to pass the class. Y'all are going to do a lot more work than if I did things fairly, right? So there are so many people, the factory owners are sort of preying on this desperation of these people who are coming to the city with no job. They'll be like, okay, I want to make this much money, but if the only way I can get a job is to take 50 cents instead of $1, I'm going to take it because 50 cents is better than 0, right? Okay. And then we have a child labor video. You can click the link and watch it. You can pause this one, go over to the next video, and then we'll come back and read the rest of this. So, in addition to low wages and long hours, Americans also had to deal with unsafe working conditions. Factories and mills were filled with new machines that were very dangerous to operate. As a result, thousands of workers were injured and hundreds more were killed each year. In addition, many Americans worked in crowded, unsanitary buildings where exit doors were locked to keep workers and fresh air out. Locked doors also resulted in hundreds of workers' deaths when fires broke out and escape was impossible. The worst of these fires was at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. This fire was New York City's worst accident until 9/11. It upset so many people who demanded laws be made to protect workers. And again, you can pause this and go over and watch this video. So, the owners of the factories, mills, and mines didn't care too much about their workers. They knew that there were a lot of immigrants and other workers that they could hire. So, if you got hurt, that was your concern. There was no laws that protected workers. They didn't have to spend money or protective equipment, safety guards on machinery, and safety training. So now most of you probably haven't been into the workplace, but think about the different safety equipment that you have in your house and public buildings. I'll tell you 2 that always come to mind: smoke detectors, fire alarms, and then another one, which y'all might not know because you're kids, an automatic defibrillator, which is for when somebody's heart stops. Yeah. So if you go to most places, they'll have at least those 3 things: a first aid kit, emergency exits. Now, you don't know how many hours we have to spend doing just like workplace safety training. And that's in any job. It's when I, worked in a preschool, when I worked with Norfolk Public Schools, when I worked in college, everywhere. And that's where we're going to stop today for our we are going to go back to our Google Classroom homepage. And we have a writing prompt. It's on the negative effects of industrialization. It's going to ask you to use your imagination. So this sort of goes along with the idea of child labor. So, negative effects of industrialization, writing prompt. Children didn't get an education because they started working at age 10. They worked long hours in unsafe working conditions and earned low wages. As adults, how could they get a better job and earn enough money so their children didn't have to work at such a young age? So, you have a child who starts working at age 10. Eventually, they're going to grow up, right? And they're going to be 25, 30 years old and have a child of their own. So, what could they do so their kid doesn't have to experience the same thing that they did? How could they keep their kid in school? How could they make more money? And that is going to be the end of our work for today. See you guys next class.